Adam, let's check out some ACC tournament possibilities.
Oh, we've got some bad news on this front.
What happened?
Well, someone's been eliminated.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Our race to Charlotte is complete.
Yeah.
We know the teams that will not advance, and it is the teams that have been in the lead in this race all year long. Miami, Boston College, and NC State. Adam's bummed.
Hate that.
Officially out of the ACC tournament. Like, State could still finish in a three-way tie for 13th, I guess, but would lose the tiebreaker with Cal and Syracuse. So Notre Dame's win over Stanford, a classic ACC battle, sealed the Pac's fate. So we know those three teams will not be there.
That game's going to be all the talk at the chemistry summer conferences.
Boy, what a season we had on the hardwood this year, fellows. So what about the Tar Heels? Well, the Tar Heels can be the 4 seed, the 5 seed, or the 6 seed. The 4 seed, it's pretty easy. If they win, they are the 4 seed. If against Duke. If they lose against Duke, they could still be the 4 seed if SMU and Wake Forest both lose as well. So both of those scenarios, Carolina could be the 4 seed. The Tar Heels could be the 5 seed. To be the 5 seed, they would have to lose. SMU would have to lose to Florida State in Tallahassee, a losable game. Leonard Hamilton's last game, and Florida State's a solid team. And Wake Forest would have to win. Wake is at home against a good Georgia Tech team. Not a great, but a good Georgia Tech team. So that's how I think the only way they can be the 5 is if that scenario plays out. If all the favorites in these games win, that would be Duke, SMU against Florida State, and Wake against Georgia Tech. If the 3 favorites win, Carolina is going to be the 6th seed because they would end up in a 3-way tie for 4th place. But, in that scenario, they'd be in a 2-way tie with Wake for 5th place, and they'd be 6th because Wake beat Carolina by 1 point in Winston-Salem in mid-January. So 4, 5, or 6, all in play. Their merits, quite honestly, to every position. Obviously, the 4 seed's the best numerically. You get the double bye. All good things. The 5 seed, you would get to play a game if you think that's important in the second round, if you just need a win. I don't know how impactful that win would be necessarily, or if the Tar Heels if it would even be useful for them at this point. And then you would then play one of those other 2 teams, SMU or Wake Forest, in the 4-5 game in what metrically could be a decent game. The 6 seed, there's some benefit there because you'd get a really good opportunity in the quarterfinal against either Louisville or Clemson if you win to get to that point, to get a really quality win. Of course, none of those are guaranteed. So, Adam, there are different places Carolina could be. I'm not really sure if one is better than the other unless you just value the double bye, which I understand the value of it. If you value that, obviously the 4 is the best. But if you're talking metric-wise, I don't really know if there's a huge advantage to one of these spots compared to another.
Yeah, I think Carolina's, and this has a lot to do with matchups. I don't think Carolina matches up very well with Clemson, but I do think Carolina could match up well with Louisville. So to me, your best path involves Louisville somewhere earlier in the tournament, in which case not only are the games that Jones mentioned important, but Stanford needs to beat Louisville probably to drop them to the 3, which then would open a path for Carolina to be the 6, and then play Louisville and potentially get a win that people might respect.
A whole lot of what ifs, obviously, in all
Right.
of these.
Yes. And could Carolina lose before they even get to Louisville? Yes. All this could be completely moot. I will say what's not completely moot is that when the ACC schedule comes out and we talk about how one of the most important things is who do you play on the road and not get back at the Smith Center? That is huge for reasons just like this. That Wake game, the 1 point in Winston-Salem is determining some of these tiebreakers, which is determining who Carolina might get to play, which may in the end determine whether Carolina gets in the NCAA tournament. Solely because they played Wake on the road and didn't play them back at home. To say nothing of Louisville, who Carolina played like a year and a half ago.
On January 1st.
And that is now being cited as a very important game. So,
I mean, and again, Carolina could have done more. We get that. Louisville, Clemson, Wake. Carolina played them one time all on the road. And that's been impactful.
Especially in a conference this big. That has to be one of the first things you pay attention to when the schedule comes out. And I don't think it gets talked about enough at this time of year when people cite things like conference record and don't really pay any attention to who those teams were or where they were. Like, have we not all arrived at a consensus that in college basketball where you play the game is important?
Probably more so than any sport.
I thought we all agreed on that. But when it comes time to pick our best teams, we somehow just throw that out the window. But it's just the way it is. Luckily, the selection chair is on top of that, I bet.
And we will say this, obviously, there are some other sides to this. I mean, Carolina played SMU once, and it was here. And they played Georgia Tech, who I think is a decent team, once very early, and it was in the Smith Center. So yeah, they did get some of that the other way as well. But I think, I mean, just the 3 that we highlighted. I mean, Wake, Clemson, and Louisville, one time on the road, all pretty early, has been impactful, certainly.
I would just remind you that under the Jones and Adam plan, Carolina would have played Louisville and Clemson probably this past week, one at home, one on the road.
Well, I think in our plan, because what we talked about a week or so ago, I think you would have gone to SMU and you would have gotten one of Louisville or Clemson in the Smith Center, both of which would have been impactful games.
That would have answered a lot of the questions that are currently unanswerable about Carolina. Like, have they gotten better? Those games would have answered those questions. But instead, the Tar Heels played Miami, who no one cared about, even when the Tar Heels destroyed them.
And again, Adam and I are arm wrestling about, we're trying to go over the top on this. I do think you should play everyone once. Carolina shouldn't, the Tar Heels shouldn't be married to having to play State twice every year anymore. It's 2025. I'm sorry, NC State. Remember where that almost happened one time where, like, for 3 months they had changed the schedule, but then somebody else left or came into the league? I don't remember. And so they ended up changing it. And State was so mad that Carolina and State were only going to play once instead of twice. Well, that's just what it is now.
Well, hey, State, if you're mad, maybe don't vote to allow Cal, Stanford, and the Pony Bros, who we respect, to come into the league. Like, your vote has ramifications, as everyone sees regularly. And the fact that you voted to add those teams might cost you your one home game that your fans care about.
Hold on, I'm getting up from my seat.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get this real fast. I do want to say thank you to Matt Krause, the play-by-play voice for, of course, Tar Heel women's basketball. He got us a little Pony Bros. He was at SMU because we haven't had the pleasure yet with football or basketball to go to the Pony Bros. He went and saw the Pony Gals when women's basketball played SMU, and he got us a little SMU commemorative tiny little ACC football.
It somehow feels right to me that even though it was the Pony Gals playing, they still in some way like threw SMU footballs into the crowd.
Yep.
Like, that feels to me like something SMU would do.
Yeah. So
I respect them.
So, big day coming up Saturday. Everybody's playing on Saturday. It all comes down to this. Man, what a long it's Adam, this is an unusual place for Carolina to be. The Tar Heels could only have 2 games left. Or they could have 10 games left. It's not a place Carolina normally is. And I think they're playing at a point where it would feel like it would be a shame if they didn't get an opportunity to keep going, but that's out of our hands.
That's one of the most unexpected storylines of the year is that I want to see this team more.
No, I agree with that. I agree with you. I said it during the broadcast on Tuesday. There were some times where it was not fun to watch this team this year, which was surprising to me because I always thought one thing this team would be fun to watch. Just didn't know how good they would be. I thought they'd be pretty good, but I thought they would be fun to watch because I thought the way that they would try to play would at least be entertaining. But it hasn't been that way all the time. But it has been lately. They've been fun to watch. And you want to keep watching them, which I don't know if that was the case when everybody was leaving Littlejohn.
And it's been consistently. It hasn't been like a 5-minute spurt here and 6 minutes of that game. They've managed to do it for very, very long stretches, if not the full 40 minutes, which is encouraging.
6:30, again, ish. 6:30-ish. 3 Tar Heels going to be recognized senior day. Ty Claude, Jalen Withers, and, of course, R.J. Davis.
Watch your social media.
Oh.
Big work coming from Josh Revis that you'll enjoy on those 3.